Can I start?
Yeah.
So, okay, good evening, everyone. So, today we actually come with a variety of speakers for our panel discussion. So, the topic we have chosen is Voice for the Margins. So, the speakers are truly amazing. They have come up with different issues that have to be dealt with the ongoing ballot movement. So, we sort of had to put it in a much broader sense, saying we would like to hear from all of the people who are marginalized within these movements and all of that. And many times we see that there is very less representation from women in Dalit movement, and also specifically from women from northeast areas and eastern part of our country. So it's highly dominated by the mainlanders, and that has come up. But now it's time for us to kind of see and think and look at how these people are being treated in the northeast part of our country and also the eastern part of our country. So the majority part of our speakers are from there. So we have Ahana Mansai today. She is a independent filmmaker. That's what she would like to call herself because that's what she gave in her bio on the first line. And she has done her MA in Mass Communications from Pondicherry University. Now she is actually looking forward for a PhD.
Oh, it's a
I
good
request
news
her.
that
I request her.
she has already got a PhD in
Oh, that's like
Hyderabad
we should all
University.
celebrate
Yeah.
probably after this. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a
And
very good news actually.
yes, yes. So can you all mute yourself because I'm hearing an echo. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes. So very congratulations to Ahana for her selection in the interview. I would like to introduce all of our speakers and then slowly go on to the topic. We have Dona Biswas. She is a Dalit feminist from, she has Bengal and Assamese origin. I hope she would like to talk about it more during her time given to her. She is a PhD student in Women and Gender Studies from Ambedkar University, Delhi, and her research interests include social movements and the women role in social movements, and with specific interest in how are gender relations being operated in the borderland movement. So I welcome Dona Biswas for the panel today. Now we have Navneeta. She is a PhD scholar in University of North Bengal. Her research interests are gender and aesthetics, and she has been involved in making a award-winning documentary articulating women and all of that. Uh, so yes, so every speaker actually gets a time limit of 10 minutes. Have to be spoken 10 minutes within 10 minutes of the time frame. The way we plan this is each speaker has 8 to 10 minutes, and then the audience can actually put in their Q&A in the form of comments under the YouTube live video so that we can take it up at the end of the session. And I guess there is some technical issue. The speakers have lost themselves. And yeah, so today's discussion is going to be interesting precisely because of the topics that these speakers are going to cover. So now I would like to invite Ahana for the discussion because today she's going to talk about a variety of issues ranging from how media, because her research interest is in media, so she also wants to look at how media treats the entire Hathras issue. And then moving on, she also wants to speak a little bit on our political status of Dalits in Odisha. And then she will prolong her discussion. So I invite Ahana to take her space, take her right space that belongs to her, and talk about things that she wants to talk about. Thank you.
So, yeah, good evening, ladies. I hope I'm audible, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if we start to see how media has treated Dalits, then it's always just because our representation is very less. It's a very open secret. Like people may say that we have newsroom which is very diverse, where all the caste, creed, and minorities are represented, but it's a very clear thing that it's not. Like if you see the report also, among 121 newsroom leadership positions, like the editor-in-chief, managing director, executive editor, bureau chief, or TV news channels, or let me talk about print media as well. Whether it's magazines or whether it's newspapers, 106 are occupied by UCs, the upper caste. Five are from OBC and six are from minorities. And the rest we don't even have data. So where are Dalits? Where are Adivasis? Even three out of every four anchors, if I talk about TV anchors, like 40 anchors in Hindi channels and 47 in English, of all the debates are done by UCs. Like even the Dalits and Adivasis are missing in the debates. Like we are not in the media holding power positions. We are not called for debates, yet they want to talk about us. Like it's always that they know more than us. Like it's just we don't have voices. They want to be our voice. Like when we can be our own voices, why can't we are given chances? This is very clear discrimination. If you see, even 72% of byline articles, like the articles byline in newspapers, are done by UCs. Like, can you imagine the plight? Like, if I'm a Dalit, and if I'm writing a piece of article or news, they might not give me credits just because I don't know. Like, they don't want them to be associated with Dalit journalists or Dalit writers, and this is not just now. Like if you see it, it has been from many long back. That's the reason why Maharashtra, even you talk about publishing houses, it's very difficult for a Dalit writer to get a publication, a good publication. Let me talk about how the Hathras issue actually provoked, media to gain attention. But at the same time, it was one push of Rahul Gandhi, and the media just shifted the attention. It was no more about the Manisha. It was no more about how brutal the act was or how gruesome the rape was. It was just about, oh my God, Rahul Gandhi. If something like this can happen to Rahul Gandhi, what about us? Even what do you mean? Like Rahul Gandhi is not bigger. Like a Dalit life matters, and people come up with these things like, no, hashtag all the life matters, not Dalit life matters. You are being caste blind. Why do you have to drag caste everywhere? It is, we have to drag. Like I, I will be a Dalit forever. I may be rich. I may go to University of Oxford, but still, when I come back, my single identity will be a Dalit. It's the same. Like, and the media, the ethics of media has changed. Like especially the ethics of media which I have read in my college is just in the books. Like the ethical journalism has gone. Like there are very a few people, a very few journalists who are just practicing ethical journalism. I don't even know what, like what is now. Like can you imagine that this journalist asked to the rape victim, I mean Manisha's brother, about the incident. I mean, how can you ask a close family member to describe what had happened to her, to their daughter, to their sister? And if you see, even post that, after her body was burned, there was this huge number of journalists who was poured down in their village, in their house. Like the Vice India media states that one of the bites of the aunt of that victim, of the girl who was raped, says, we don't have time to eat. They are not leaving us alone. They have no privacy. They cannot sleep. They cannot eat. I mean, can you imagine the plight? Which means we are objectified, which means we are obliged, we are ought to, provide them whatever they are needed. We are not treated as human beings. Will the same happen to somebody else from an upper caste? Like, will the same treatment would be given to the family or to the dead body? No. I mean, for this to make a change in this, it's a huge run. Like if you talk about the news articles also which talks about caste, is very few. Like from the past 10 to 20 years, the report says 10, only 10 out of 972 articles featured on cover page of 12 magazines under study are issued related to caste. That's it. Like just 10 in this many years. So this is where we are. Like, we may talk about so many things, but we are still behind. We are still the flag bearers of Manusmriti and patriarchal society and casteist and fascist society. Like, I don't know. Today maybe we may be taped, just because you never know. The government is going somewhere else, and we might be somewhere behind the bars just because we have freedom of speech and expression. And now, if we talk about how Dalits in Odisha, especially my place, there are many who even don't even know that, the survival rate and the poverty is so much here, that, and the caste atrocities, they just think that they are born with it. I mean, we have this ingrained Manuvadi everywhere. The UCs have penetrated in our minds so brutally that they just think that they're born with this. It's like a curse. But no, we are like, we are fighting for our equality, we are fighting for justice, but you cannot even see it. It's very hard for us to come up to the mainstream. Like, people like me or you or anybody, we are able to talk just because we are little bit, we went to some college, we came out of our places, and we got access to educations. But there are thousands of people who are still there.
We were not even
And
allowed to talk in our colleges sometimes.
that's true. And people have this concept that caste doesn't exist. Like, it doesn't exist in urban spaces, especially in educational institutions. Oh my God, should I name the institutional murders just because it happened for the caste? Like, what happened to S. Anita? What happened to Payal Tadvi? I mean, everybody knows Rohit Vemula. Like, that's the only reason. I mean, it was an institutional murder. It was not a suicide. Caste might be subtle in cities, but it is prevalent. I mean, they do ask you. They ask me questions like, when I tell, oh, I'm an SC, they come up with like, how come you're pretty? How come you're fair? How can, I mean, what is this? Like, how do you dress well? What do you mean? Like, I should dress like, I mean, something else? I mean, what is this stereotypical thought about that? We should be looking like this. So can you imagine what exactly they have their image for us in their minds? Like, we are always subjected. They do not want us to dress well also. They do not want us to speak English also. They do not want us to score well. Like, if I score well, oh, it will be like, oh, just because she has a reservation, oh, she doesn't have merit. I mean, I have heard in my friends who just says that, oh, you will get into any college just because you have a reservation. I mean, it's not about that. I mean, you cannot see what fight my ancestors or my parents have done for me to be here. I mean, I'll be the first generation to study a higher education. I mean, it is very much different than you having a household which is a lineage of very humongous lineage of educators, or I mean, people who are working at government offices. We, as far I think so, like, for us, for our people to be heard their news, we should have a proper representation in education sector, in judiciary, in media, and in bureaucracy. That's the only way. As Ambedkar itself says, that educate, the first thing we have to educate ourselves. I mean, there's a dialogue in Tamil movie at the end of the movie. It's Periyarum Perumal, where he says that if you have wealth, they may snatch it. If you have land, they may snatch it also. But if you have education, it will not go anywhere. And that's the only thing which we should take forward, and we are fighting for it. And our struggle is very long. It won't stop here. Like, it won't stop with me. My coming generation, my kids, my grandkids, they all have to do that. And it's very hard.
Right. And also talk to us more about how it is like to be a Dalit from Odisha, and how is the community there, as you have first-hand experience of being there, and talk to us more about it.
See, when you compare the Dalits in my place and the Dalits in urban, so we have ghettos. Like, we have proper Dalit ghettos. So as usual, it's at the end of the city, or it's in the beginning, which you call it as the ends. So we have ghettos, and there's this still there's this practices and nuances where you feel that like you are something away from the mainstream society. The first thing which they ask you is like, what is your surname? Not even my name. What is my surname? Okay. And the second thing they ask you is like which clan. So which means the Dalits also have subgroups, right? So they also want to know which category of Dalit. So according to that, maybe they will oppress me or something of that sort. But if you see the Dalits of my place, especially the Dalits and Adivasis, it's a very we despite of coming to this more than 70 years of our independence, the government has neglected us. The Odisha government has neglected us. I come from the western part of the Odisha, and we have rich minerals, we have forests, we have everything which nature has blessed us with, but yet we are marginalized. There are villages here where there are no colleges, no schools, no hospitals. Like a pregnant woman has to climb down the hilltop of 15 kilometers just to get an access to hospital. We getting an Aadhaar card becomes difficult. We getting schemes from the government is difficult. What difficult? We are not even aware. The people are not even aware that there are certain these things, and the middlemen and the politicians, they just make use of it. We are just vote banks. Dalits are just vote banks, and for as Dalits, especially in my place, very a few people think about gaining their respect and dignity just because it is this ingrained thing that we don't deserve it. So it's all this that at least we should get a square meal of food. The only necessity for it has become that a food. Can you? So the more number of migrant workers are from Odisha and Bihar and Jharkhand who goes to around the country to go for the migration working, right? So if you ask a small six standard student who is studying in a local school, he will say, if you ask what do you want to become, and this guy will say, I just want to pass 8 so that I'll know how to read, write and all, and use some phone and computer, and I can go for migrant working. Can you imagine? I mean, this is the condition. And here I think that the administration has failed very badly. I mean, it's the administration which has always sidelined us, which is always like not seen us as a priority. And now people come up to me and say that, oh, you Dalit, you just want some money and some biryani to vote. You don't have any, like this Telugu actor Vijay Deverakonda says. I mean, you mean you treat us more pitifully than any animal? Like, you don't treat us as human beings with minds. Rohit Vemula says, why this human mind is not treated as a mind of stardust? Like, my immediate identity is something else. I mean, this is sick. I mean, we will talk about it today, but we cannot really let it go unless and until you have to accept it that we are equal. Like we are.
Yes, those are very crucial points that Ahana has actually made, be it the representation of Dalits in print media or even you say any other form of media. And she also spoke a little bit about ethical journalism, and she ended with how Dalits in Odisha are actually suffering of acute malnourishment. So I have worked a little bit on health inequities and how it impacts SC community a while ago. And I've also found it that this mere untouchability also impacts how these children is whether nourished or malnourished, because the doctors would not actually touch these children to give the sort of whatever the health care that is required to the children. So that is the state of Dalit children and Dalit women, especially that those falling in the 1,000-day window period and under 5 children. So, I mean, I have read that it is very one of the important factors in human development. If we are not able to achieve that for our children, and specifically talking about the backward states like Odisha and Jharkhand and Bihar, then we are doing a huge injustice into our entire community, who also have to face the double burden of being malnourished and also being an untouchable within that particular spectrum. Very well made points, Ahana. Thank you. And now Dona Biswas. I would like to invite Dona Biswas to talk about how her daily experiences or how the Dalits in Assam face discrimination in their everyday lives.
Yeah, thank you so much for this platform actually. I think this is my first time like I am like publicly talking about my Assamese Bengali identity. I mean, it is very tough in a way to articulate what I'll be trying to say from a regional background. I mean, yeah, like like here, I must say that there's the caste identity along with the state identity is something like which Bengali Dalit in Assam will have, and we need to understand this, uh, uh, like it becomes very important which we have ignored actually, है ना? So that's why like I'm coming out with my anecdote, like few, like when I was living there, when I was studying there, and like how like ST, like tribal people are also treated with the same way like how SC are also treated, but then it will come as a ethnic identity. So when we talk about Assam in particular or Northeast, so we'll thought or we'll talk mostly about ethnic identity, but here I'm specially focusing on Assam because Assam has the presence of caste based society where they functions these caste practices in a very subtle way, like how Ahana also spoken about it. Na? Like it's not like earlier time, like where how like Dalits will be treated, but now like it has the modern institution has find their own way to treat us. So that's why like I felt like I was growing in a mixed society in Guwahati with Assamese, other Bengali, Bodo, Rabha, Nepali, Bihari. So for me, like in my growing childhood time, like caste was not an important issue which hit me directly. But I could see, like when I was in class 8, for the first time, like I experienced this untouchability, and that's through my father's colleague. I mean, the family is a Brahmin Bengali family, and the lady of that family has actually stopped me to enter to their kitchen. And for the first time, I realized like why it's happening on me. But then, as nobody will speak about these kind of experiences, so I also left it with myself. I have not never spoken about these with my friends or family or other people in my neighbor, but I parallelly I could see like how tribal student will are also treated by Bengali Bhadralok teachers. Okay, so most often like I used to hear this comment, like everyday comment, like a random comment, like when they will be saying like tribal people are slow learners. Am I audible? Okay. So they will randomly, in any occasion, they will be saying like tribal students are slow learner, they are violent, they are dumb, they don't understand culture and good literature. And I can see like that was not on me because they might not have understood that I comes from Dalit background because my surname is Biswas and it's like upper caste surname. So in that way, like I could relate to the whole like discrimination practices, and I could also understand which are the community that they are targeted on daily basis. Okay, but it actually shook me when I was in my graduation and I took English literature in my graduation. So you can understand like we don't have this cultural to speak to learn English language as much as they upper caste have. Okay, and also it same goes to the tribal people in Assam, like they also have their oral histories, and which is not like something national history that they will be connected to. So when we are trying to read this new text, like mostly many teachers would say like, and mostly from like upper caste of any ethnic community. It can be Punjabi, it can be Bengali, it can be, yeah, anyone. I mean, yeah, maybe also Bihar. I mean, and then they will say like they used to discourage us that you don't know anything. Like not me only. I'm saying like the numbers of students from marginal background. They will say that you don't know anything. Then why do you have come for graduation and that too like English literature? So they used to discourage us like anything. And one day I remember, like, one a upper caste Punjabi teacher, he was pointing she was pointing to another teacher, and she comes from Bodo community. Okay, so she was pointing to that teacher and was saying, see, these teachers can't teach you all, and they are destroying the standard of education. And we feel so angry. So first of all, you will not teach us, like, you are actually giving us handmade old notes repeatedly every year. And that teacher is actually investing on us. She was like teaching us, giving like new perspective, different perspective to understand literature, world literature, subaltern studies, everything. And she was also motivating us. Okay, but I why I'm sharing this thing, because like these everyday practices is so much what we are today. Okay, what we know, that what we don't have to do. So today, like, I coming from Dalit, from Assam, I can also understand like how tribal people are struggling for their rights in their movement. And that has actually shaped me in this time. And in university space especially, like, I can see like how when it comes to uh, encouraging the history of northeastern region, it will never be encouraged. And also like the what it called the complex history of Dalit, obviously it also don't come. So you can see like the present NRC thing, where like the protest has happened, like where minority religious community, especially Bengali origin Muslim, they were treated in the NRC as foreigner, as something like very unimportant to Assam. But what they have forgot to tell is that there is also Namashudro, there is also Dalit Bengali who are part and parcel of Assam history, but they were never treated. And if you see the ending, like the violence that they receive will not come. So I can give one more example from 2018, where five people from them were Nomoshudro, one from the Jalu community, they were killed because of the whole NRC issue that has happened. But it was not in the news. And I'm sure like people have not bothered. I mean, they will, one, so they will distance it because it's a northeastern issue. And second, they will also bother because it's like people who are not important for them. So in that way, I strongly feel that, yeah, this the platform like this should also speak about the history, migration history of Dalit community, Dalit Bengali in all over India, especially in Assam and in Bengal. And that's why like the soft violence that is targeted upon us is very much important, as well as the physical, as well as the like more atrocious violence that happen on us. Like for me, like when Hathras case has happened, like people have not bothered initially, and it was not like it was also not talked. uh, her family, her struggle, which was actually for many times they were struggling in that village. Okay, so unlike like other rape cases, like it is something where both the family is struggling, victim family, and the upper caste who has done this were in constant battle. Okay, I mean, we understand like the criticality of it, but then we need to talk about this everyday kind of discrimination that
போயிட்டோம்
happens.
ஏற்பட
Yeah,
போயிட்டோம்
I mean, yeah, anything. Should I continue? Okay. Okay, so that was whole important for me to actually, I also have not, I don't have like complete answer to this, like how we'll study like migration, Dalit migration history. But yeah, I'm sure like if we discuss more about it, we'll talk more about it. I mean, we'll have like, of course, like we'll have more um, input to give. Okay, so that is one thing. And also I feel like the identity issue. I mean, how like we like our the state, the Brahminical society, the Brahminical state actually, I must say, they have uh, ruined our identity in one way that now we cannot, now we don't remember our history. We don't know, like, I think I may be the first person from my whole village where I am coming for my PhD, and I want to study my history. I wanted to study why they have like why they have, first of all, they have came to Assam. Though I know the direct logic of it, the zamindari system in Bengal and all, but it is also self-respect that has made them to come to Assam. So in zamindari system, like they have never got their position which they should get it. So that is why like Namoshudra movement has happened. Like if we also discuss more about that movement, because it was like life changing event for us, like where we for the first time talk about our self respect. Okay, and our identity, and we are like we should be proud what we are. And like it is like how Kancha Ilaya also speak, no, like this productive community versus this unproductive parasite. So it is true, like there also they were agricultural laborer. Here in Assam also they are agricultural laborer, and they have their living history more than 100 years. And how after then they are caught in the violence of state and these um, caste discrimination practices, no. So yeah, I mean, that is my point. I mean, I don't know, like I wanted to talk more about this reservation, how it is also not practiced like in an ethical manner in everywhere. I mean, they always have their own way to uh, like even after like reservation, the percentage we have is not enough for us. But they will never allow us to speak on that. But they will like always push us to demand कि अभी reservation रहना है नहीं रहना है. I mean, this is not a point to talk actually. So we need to bring more reservation. I feel like the population that we have, this is not enough for us. Okay, so yeah, I mean, these are whole lost of our histories. That is why like we cannot, frankly, we cannot like in our day to day life also we fail to understand such practices.
Yeah. Thank you. That's actually so many points in a power packed in like 10 minutes. So, um, so you have spoken about how our histories have been erased, and the very complex identity of non-Shudra community and their migrational histories. And I'm sure all of our viewers are not very much aware of the kind of history that you have just spoken about, and also about the our NPR and NRC struggle that this non-Shudra people died, and no one actually bothered to kind of shed a tear or just write about them. Even the Dalit Baujan community that we are talking of, even I'm myself not aware of that particular incident where non-Shudra community have actually faced difficulties. Can everyone mute themselves? It's echoing. Thank you. Yes. So these are the some norms that we have to follow because of these online discussions. This is yeah, we have to learn new things. And yeah, so thank you. The very idea of complex ethnic identity and the identity, complex identity that you possess itself is an example. And I'm sure it's not just your personal history, rather, there'll be so many people who will definitely empathize with you from our community. The women who come out actually go out to the educational institutions, go out and do work. I mean, it's not that our women don't work. I'm just talking about the more formal institutions of work and the modern institutions of work. A lot of women can definitely relate to whatever you have spoken, specifically women from Non-Shudra community. Thank you for making the valid points, Donna. Now I request Navneeta to actually go ahead and talk about how she plays herself in this entire conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalyani, for this opportunity, and a very warm greetings to my co-panelists, Ahana and Donadi. I thoroughly enjoyed your talks, and I think there is so much to learn, so much to know from each of our experiences. And I think this platform is a platform of solidarity where we choose to talk, right? I think accepting your identity is one of the most productive and one of the most prolific tasks that we need to do today. So what I'm trying to understand in today's talk, or tell in today's talk, is the acts of reification, or the acts through which we become Dalit, right? How we become Dalit, right? I think many would argue with my very point that how can one become Dalit when one is born into a Dalit family? I want to say here that I want to clarify that I do not consider becoming as something that happens later, but my being a Dalit, or our being a Dalit, is complemented with that sense of becoming. Perhaps I'll be able to comprehend that better in what I have to say today. I will take, of course, the Hathras incident as a focal point to talk about the becoming of a Dalit, right? Now, to begin with, I think I need to really talk about what I think of Dalit identity. I think the term Dalit is a proclamation. It's a moment of self-assertion. It's a very positive moment of representing oneself, representing one's experience, a very conscious claim to position oneself. I think that would be the right way to understand, for me at least. Because what I have seen through in my personal experience is that I belong to a scheduled caste community. I belong to Rajbangshi community of Bengal. And this community is spread across many states in India. Assam, lower parts of Assam, Donati knows, from Dhubri perhaps to Bongaigaon, then parts of Meghalaya, parts of Bihar, and in different countries as well, northern parts of Bangladesh in the Rangpur district, as well as in the southern parts of Nepal, that is the Jhapa, Morang, Sunsari area. So it's a big community, but it is, it's full with complexities and problems, and I think each and every state has a different problem of its own. I would rather talk from my position of being a Rajbangshi in West Bengal, right? So in West Bengal, what happens is that I am born into a scheduled caste family, and that truth is something that is given. No one can take it away from me, neither I can, neither can I. So I think that is there. But what happens is that my claim to Dalitness, or my being a Dalit, is an important political assertion that I make, right? And I make this assertion after, I believe, after moments of stigma, moments of loathing, moments of self-hatred, moments of social and personal choice, right? And after coming outside, outside the hierarchy of differentiation that the caste Varna system is. So I think I would term Dalit identity as such, a self-assertion. Now, what do I mean, or how do I understand this idea of reification, or what is this reification? The reification is a kind of materializing something that seems very impalpable. Like Donadi and Ahana, we were talking about how subtle the caste discrimination is, both in urban spaces as well as the modern spaces, which we term, of course, the urban / modern spaces. In rural spaces, things become very much explicit. The social borders, perhaps the visualities, the spatial arrangement of the villages and everything, the ghettos, makes things very apparent, makes things very, very apparent to us. But what happens in a modern urban space, wherein we do not see those stratifications, wherein we cannot visualize things very, very directly? What happens there? So what happens now? we have to understand that the event of Hathras, the gang rape, or the other massacres, caste-based massacres, or immolations, or the violent crimes against the Dalits. So when we look into these bigger crimes, I think what is also important is to look into the interstices, is to look into the other layers of the crime as well. What will happen if we are looking into the other layers of the crime? We will be able to trace the caste politics, the caste discrimination in the events. I will take upon, I'll of course look into the Hathras incident to really make it more easy for people to understand what I'm trying to talk. Now, before going into that, I'll think of two important instances about the Hathras case. Going back to the Hathras case, we know that the family, the Valmiki family, and the Thakur family, they were involved in a family feud, and that's a given thing, and it's something that's based on caste fault lines, power and access to resources. We are aware of that through social media and different news portals and so on and so forth. And it also speaks of the existence of caste discrimination in the very space wherein the girl belongs to, or the victim belongs to. Secondly, how the very fact of her belonging to a Dalit family is there. And I think that these two facts or factors are overt and unambiguous factors that eventually led to the perpetuation of this crime, this hatred against the women, to actually, by the upper caste, in the pursuit to justify their violence, in the pursuit to justify their power as upper caste men. Right. But I think in these two very moments also, besides these two factors of the family feud and her belonging to the Dalit family, there is another important thing I believe we have to understand what is there, what's happening. Like, once we move out from the village where the incident happens to the institutions, right? She's moved to the Thana, then to the Thana, and then she's moved to the hospital, right? So now we are moving outside the very traditional space where caste proliferates, perhaps like the Bajra in the field. And then we move out into the urban space, into the so-called very modern spaces of justice and hospitality, right? Now, what happens here? Outside this very cozy landscape where things become easy to trace, we are moving into a domain where apparently social and casteism does not exist. Apparently, where caste discrimination does not exist, right? But what happens in the Hathras case, what we see is that there are lapses, there are absences, there are erasures, there are erasures of several evidences. There is a sense of deprivation that the victim faces. There are silences, very, very uncanny silence from the administrator as well as from the other officials involved, and also a sense of impunity for the perpetrators and the practitioners of caste system, right? So throughout this, we see the Hathras case falling within these similar factors, like the factor that is of silencing, the factors such as that of what I call erasures, of deprivations, of silences, that actually fill this entire event. Now, therefore, we see that the officials denied proper responsibility to locate the victim to the hospital. Then we see the eerie silences when the officials were very close to the victim. They could have actually diagnosed her and done things perhaps at a greater speed, which was not done, of course, and also an attempt to erase the evidence for prolonging the test, right? Prolonging the test deliberately for around 196 days. Right. So these are some deliberate attempts made by the modern institutions, deliberate attempts made by the so-called non-casteist spaces, spheres, from which the these important lapses are found. And I think in these lapses, exactly in these lapses, we see how one becomes or how one can visualize the caste hierarchy, the caste discrimination that is present even today in different spaces. And I would also like to add that one of the most disgracing thing that happens in the Hathras case is that she is completely disempowered. She is made completely voiceless, right? When the victim voices when the victim voices her problem, when the victim voices her assault, that voice is not given due credit. That voice is not considered having or possessing truth value. Her her voice, her testimony to the violence that she has gone through is negated, is denied. So I think in this case, her agency as a woman is also denied. And in this denial, I think in the denial and this denial, I think we can actually trace how she becomes a Dalit again and again and again. Her endeavor to seek redressal, her family's endeavor to seek redressal and treatment becomes a kind of failure one after the other, and so on, and it continues. The failure continues. And why does this failure continue? Why does the family fail? Why does she fail to breathe? Because there has been a sense of lackadaisical treatment, a sense of dismissal, a sense of disavowal on part of the modern institutions, so-called modern institutions, free of caste-based discriminations. So I think when are we to look into these very apparently ambiguous terms such as absence, apparently very immaterial, apparently very shady terms, absence, silence, and waiting, and yeah, these things, we tend to feel that caste is somewhere there in the air. Caste is not air actually. Caste is there, but we cannot materialize it. But I think through these very gaps, through these very silences, through these very um, absences, one can trace the caste, trace the perpetuation of discrimination throughout. So that's what I would like to say. Like, if the police did cooperate with the incident, with the victim, if the FSL report was not that problematic, if the tests were done within 96 hours, if she were not burned without consent of a family, the state could have privileged her as a gender subject only. But the state has failed to claim that. The failure rests in the state, in our people, in the society, being a casteist society. So I would like to stop here about the Hathras here and talk a little bit about how I also think about my identity. And that has to do with becoming a Dalit again. Right. In the very beginning, I said that many of us are scheduled castes, perhaps, but or my community, people from my community, although being a scheduled caste, they will never accept of their Dalitness, or they will not accept the Dalit identity or not call themselves Dalit. And why is that so? Because if you are to look into our very identity, which I call as Rajvanshi identity, Rajvanshi identity, they call it somewhere, some places. So this very identity is or has gone through a series of reformation. And this reformation comes, I think, holding the hands of Western, the Enlightenment thought, and then Bengal Renaissance, and then again, I think this reformation is also, or Rajvanshi reformation is also a part of, or a legacy or an offspring of Bengal Renaissance. So in the beginning of the 19th century, sorry, in the beginning of 1913, what happens is that under the leadership of Thakur Panchanan Barma, Rajvanshis actually become Rajvanshis through the sacred thread, the ritualized performance of adopting the sacred thread. And why I'm talking about this is that there are two instances which lead to, major instances which lead to their adoption or their resurfacing as Kshatriyas. The first being that they were outright denying the classification or categorization by the officials, the colonial officials, of considering the Rajvanshis as tribals. They considered themselves that the very category of tribe as an offense against their identity. Secondly, the influence, or secondly, the oppression, caste-based oppressions that the leader, that is Panchanan Barma, himself faced. So because of these two, independent as much as interlinked reasons, we did have the Upanayana ceremony in 1930. But interestingly, this very person who had led to this mass reformation of the Rajvanshis from darkness to light, from barbarism to the reformed new Khatriyaization, and thank you, Donadi, for the term, new Khatriyaization. And so what is happening is that like by 1916 and 1932, after the Pune Pact was signed, we are enlisted into as depressed classes, later termed as scheduled tribe, scheduled caste. So here we see there are two things that I think scheduled castes from the pre-colonial time, from the colonial time, from the colonial period till date, go through. There is a kind of dilemma that one goes through. That how do I claim my self-respect? What are the ways as to I assert my identity, assert my respect and my dignity as a human? So that's the first problem that I think each and every scheduled caste faces today. Some do that through, I believe, doing away with one's identity, denying outright, camouflaging, perhaps one would say. Some kind of do not accept it, and there are several other ways to do so. But that's a glaring question. Like, how do we establish the fact that we are no less, we are no subhumans, we cannot be dehumanized at every point? So, and the second thing I believe, what today, from my position, from my experience as a Rajvanshi, I think that also in Bengal, many the scheduled caste communities faced, or Rajvanshis face, is that apart from how do I differentiate myself, I think this is something that is relevant in Bengal very much. Like, how do I differentiate myself? How do I remain a Rajvanshi, or how do I remain belong to this identity with dignity, without actually assimilating with the others? Of course, this has to do with politics, this has to do with political representation. But I think there are these two questions that I think every Dalit face to achieve or to understand how I can ascertain my identity, how I can ascertain my self-respect, and secondly, how can I uh, um, how can I claim my identity without being biased, without being dehumanizing to others? So I think these two things I would like to bring up.
Uh, that's actually very great, Nabita. That we have actually got to know something new. That we have got to know something new. The very fact that you have started off with becoming a Dalit and how it is important, and then you have traced back your origins to Rajbanshi community and how they were initially still in scheduled tribe, and then they later on in 1932 they have become a scheduled caste, and pretty it's a good learning for all of us, at least for me, because I'm not aware of the history of Rajbanshi community and many such other communities which might exist in this very country. Sure, definitely, point well taken. Now the panel is actually up for the questions. So I see no questions, so I have few questions to the panelists, and I would like to have the panelists to actually talk about the politics of bodily integrity, specifically of Dalit women. So I request Ahana to kind of elaborate on this particular aspect.
Uh, See, first of all, it's very difficult to be a woman in a country like India, right? I mean, we are objectified, we are treated as something lower, and especially if you are a Dalit woman or if you are a tribal woman, then you are not even in the social strata ladder. Like, you are, see, Dalits, Adivasis are always in the down. This is how uh, that is. But now, if you're a woman, then you are much lower to that. So this has always been this. If you see the branding, slut shaming is so much easy and so much common for people to do it on us. Like, a northeast girl is always treated that, oh, she's easygoing, oh, she might be she might be, they are catcalled, you just have to spend some money on them and they are ready to do anything with you. I mean, this has happened to me directly, that during my elections time when I was contesting for a school representative in Pondicherry University. So while I was campaigning, and this guy says that, oh, you come from this western part of Odisha, and especially you are a Dalit. Like, how much did they offer you to get this? Like, can you imagine? Which means I'm valued with some money. Like me, my body, my mind, my soul is just a number. And I mean, just imagine, like, this happens to every Dalit woman or every tribal woman. Like, they are not even asked for consent. I mean, if you see itself in Manusmriti, the consent is missing. I mean, and especially consent from women from our societies or our communities. Forget about it. And there are many. This is this patriarchal thought, this Savarna thought that we deserve. Like, I mean, the women from backward communities deserve to be exploited. I mean, it's kind of a service which we offer to them. If you see Devadasis, if you see the history, I mean, Devadasi, why? Like, if you see now also, the Madiga women from Telangana and Karnataka, they are the only Devadasi practices. Why not any UC woman? Why not any Brahmin woman? Why? Isn't it a service to God? I mean, Brahmins are very close to God. Why can't they donate, or they can offer their first girl child to be a God? You know what? I mean, what do you call it? Like sex slave of God? I mean, see, I mean, and even if you see the gods are also categorized accordingly. So Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwar, the Trinity, are only for the Brahmins, and the gods like Yalama is for us. So if you see this constant thing that we as a woman have so much of fear to have to walk in the street, but you in the broad, I mean, for a UC woman it might be very difficult for her to walk in the street in the night, but for us, for women from our communities, it becomes difficult even to wake up in the morning and to go to the office, and we are in this constant fear that what if somebody knows I'm an SC, what if somebody knows I'm an ST, will they see me accordingly, that will they judge me according to that, what if they judge my merit, what if they judge my education qualifications, what if they judge everything? Like, it's very easy. Like, one of this friend of mine, I don't want to mention the name, this guy clearly says to me that, the prostitutes, I mean, the sex workers are mostly Dalits and tribals, all the Nepalis and all the Northeast, and it was so easy for him to tell that. But it also does carry a fact that is true. That's also true, that the sex working is actually, I mean, the sex workers are more from the backward communities, OBC, SC, STs, but the thing is that people have this concept, but that's the thing, that they practice untouchability, but they can sleep with our women very easily. They can rape our women, but they cannot drink or eat with us. They cannot share food with us. I mean, this is this constant thing where we have to prove again and again, where this fight where we have to prove our worth, where we, in every step, it's very difficult. Every breath of your life, you have to constantly prove that, you're worth it. You are not giving me any charity. You are not doing any charity just because you're including me. This is my right. I have to be here. It is my place. And it becomes very hard.
Yeah, that's a point well taken. See, the very struggle of carrying this identity, carrying a Dalit women identity, and performing this particular identity, and you're expected to perform in a way, you're expected to talk in a way, and you're expected to behave in a certain way, even in the very modern educational institutions that we all have been to. We are expected to only look at gender issues, we are expected to only look at caste issues, as if Dalit women are not capable of looking at any other complicated stuff that that we already have the upper caste men or women taking care of it. This is a constant struggle, especially for women like us who have kind of been to these the reputed higher educational institutes, the so-called reputed higher educational institutes. That's a point taken. And I would also like Dona Didi to kind of speak about the erasure of the histories. And it's very sad. Unless and until we know our own history, we will not have any chance to stand and place ourselves in any kind of, be it a cultural revolution or be it a political revolution. We cannot place ourselves anywhere. We're just out there hanging in loose, whereas the apakas are constantly trying to kind of negate our identity, our existence. For that matter, it's not just the upper caste men and women. We also face a lot of discrimination from our own men and our own community. And within our own community, we face a lot of discrimination from the senior leaders, or you say the better, the graded inequality ka ladder. So if we belong to the lowest part of the rung of the ladder, the upper rung of the ladder, we'll say, "Ha, they are Dalits, so what? We are not them." So they are even lower. So there are all these sorts of things. Then how do we sort of overcome these things with this kind of tragedy that have been brought upon us, that we somehow seem to not have erased our histories? Like the very example that Dona Didi gave, that people are killed. The Namshudro community people are killed in the protest. Now, where is it recorded? Like, who talks about it? If it is not talked about it right now, then probably it won't be talked about it 10 years later from now. So, how do we actually take care of writing our own histories and Dalit women being a part of our own history? And I really request Dona Didi to talk a little bit more about it.
So let me then talk about my uh, ancestral part, migration history. Okay, let me start from there. I've never shared this thing in any platform. Yeah, a bit of writing I started writing it since 2017, somewhere here and there, but it's in like uh, very short kind of writing. And there I realized that the generation, I'm the third generation, third generation who has come from uh, that time, like East Bengal. Okay, so they have this history, like when it started, actually 1900, starting of 1900 itself. It has nothing to do with partition history. So our migration history has nothing to do with divide of this country and all this thing. Okay, but we have lost it. In a way, like when they have come and when they're struggling to get out of that zamindari system, which I spoken before also, has very much with the influence of Namashudra movement that happened in late 1800. Okay, so they have stopped like, it's not that we all are poor. Like the productive class is never that poor, that where we don't have food to eat, but it is exploitation which has made us without any food, without any like proper shelter kind of thing, no? Like it's not that we don't know how to deal with land. We know, like we know how to grow from seeds to gain our grain. Okay, it's that I especially think that this is very important, because we know what to do with our work, with our labor. So beginning from there, like when they have come to Assam, they got the same occupation, but here they got some kind of land through colonial uh, what it called, like of like kind of revenue that they want to generate. They have actually called this laborer from adjacent states, like from Orissa or like Chota Nagpur, they have called tea planters. Okay, from Bengal they have bought these agricultural laborers. And like more than our religious or caste identity, I feel like it is also something like which get categorized by again by upper caste society. Okay, so they have their own history, like we have our own history, where we actually know what we have to do, but then we don't get any proper uh, means to have that kind of thing, no? So I felt the greatest loss that has happened to this particular Namashudra migrant people is that now again they have to prove their identity. Okay, may it be Muslim, Bengali, okay, or may it be like Dalit or ST Bengalis who has already came here, living for more than 100 of years. Now again in this process of registering their citizenship, where they don't have documents, where they don't have written documents, it is because they have never like property like based community. They have always like labor based community. Okay, look, and that is, I think, that is what like we need to do now. Like if we can write, like me or like any other people who are fortunate enough to come to the university, if they can actually have like I that's why I like very much, I like how Ahana and Navonita actually speak about this uh, oral history, the literature which has lost. Okay, so like to give one more share one more experience is that like I have spoken about my surname, which is a dicey upper caste surname. But then while I was going through my own family history, there I realized that my maternal side surname was Nomodas. So it's directly linked with like the identity that we belong to. But then to cope with the modern institution or like modern facility to get, they have changed their surname to Roy. So my mother's side is Roy. But then, yeah, I mean, I don't know how to deal with it now. Like I should be angry, I should be happy, I don't know. But yeah, this is very important thing. Like if we can get a bit of uh, at least a bit of understanding of our history, then I think we could able to go far beyond like what we're doing right now. I mean, I don't know why people is not referring. I'm not saying like people from mainland India, but also like why people is not referring Namoshudra movement. Why? I mean, why it's not coming in our writing? I mean, it was a huge movement. Why people are not talking about Jogendranath Mondal? He was a huge figure who worked with Ambedkar, who have actually shaped in this country today what where we are. I mean, let's talk about it. Let's have this discussion. I'm not saying like go to mythology or something. Like it's there. Like we also have to challenge that. But also like our present history, our remote history, which is like maybe 100 years, 50 years. Yeah. And right now what we're doing, I think it's we are making this history. So I mean, yeah, I'm like, I don't know, I'm like hopelessly optimistic person to have what we're doing right now. Yeah.
Yes,
I would like
I guess Navneeta wants to add on to whatever Dora Didi has said. So Navneeta, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I also have a similar experience, like the changing of the title, right? My actually, it's not even maternal, my paternal, my father's father, like my grandfather, his title is Shingho. Okay, and then I don't know, because of some problem, or I think while my father was doing getting his caste certificate or something, or the land thing was getting done, his title got changed into Roy. And very weirdly, like somewhere it's Kalindra Nath Roy, it's somewhere it's Kalin Chandra Roy. So I think these mistakes, and these mistakes are these lapses also speak of, I think, yes, of how our people were trying to fit in this new system that's coming, trying to really get access to the maximum, because of course they have an awareness of what happens when you are at the back, when you do not have access to things. But and I do accept both Hannah and Donna these things, that we need to challenge the myth, right? When I was talking about my own identity and the Kshatriya thing, I think that has to be challenged. It could be studied in a much more critical sense, very positive as well as negative sense. I know that we kind of, that is the work of a researcher to do, but I think the popular mass, the people in general should definitely critique this movement in today's light. Because if I am a scheduled caste today, it is because of Ambedkar. It's not because of Thakur Panchanan Burma. And I think I have to say that. if it were only for Thakur Panchanan Barma, I would have only claimed myself to be a Kshatriya. I would have only claimed myself to be uh, part of Hindu system and a society. But whereas the reality was, and the reality today is, that our people are still economically, educationally crippled. That is the fact. And access to higher education is the glaring truth. Because in my family, it's only me who is going into these. Me and my sister, who is actually moving towards had this convent education. Only two of us had this convent education, and I'm moving towards my higher educations and PhD. And back at my village, my own uncles, my own paternal uncle, and their children are actually day laborers. They cannot really attend their night school. They'll have to drop out. And one of my nephews did drop out this year because of the lockdown. He had to feed his family, he had to earn for his family. So I think again Ahana pointed out the fact that for them, getting an eighth degree certificate is very important, very, very important. And I think there are new policies which makes examinations in each of these grades compulsory from KG or 1 to 8th. I don't know how for the scheduled caste students, how scheduled caste, the Dalit men and women and girls and boys, how will they actually access? Won't they really escape from this institution of education forever and just confine themselves to the home after knowing that there will be compulsory examinations? I know that's another very, very problematic topic,
Right.
but
So I would also like you to talk a little bit on the linguistic politics of uh, this peculiar identity that you have just shared, the Rajbanshi community. So if you could talk about it in like 2 minutes or so, we are kind of exceeding the time. Yeah.
I think the linguistic issue of my community is one that is very, very, very problematic. Many are acquainted with this fact that, first of all, the language we speak was not given the status of language actually. It was considered to be a dialect, Kamrupi, Kamtapuri dialect. Okay. And from being a dialect to becoming a language, I think that's the fight. Or it's still not a language, we are still fighting for it, but at least we have the right to say it as a language. We can claim our language to be a language and not a dialect, at least today. That is the fact, that remains the fact. Now what happens is that there were these colonial ethnographers who actually created a whole lot of problem pertaining to our identity and everything. Somewhere they called us Mongoloids, somewhere they call us Mongoloids, Dravidians, somewhere Dravidians, Austrics. So they couldn't actually categorize us into different groups, and that was their problem. And they were also trying to, you know, give a title, give a name to our language. Some Risley, I think, in his works and other ethnographers termed this as Kamtapuri, not Kamtapuri exactly, Kamrupi. Some termed it as Rajvamshi, some termed it as Deshi, Polia. There were different names for different terms for it. But what happened in the later period, after independence actually, the demand for language strengthened as much as the demand for statehood strengthened. Okay, so here the demand for language is again very much linked to the idea of statehood, but not going to that. Restricting myself to the language politics in Bengal and my community, what happens is that there is a political group that does support the term Rajvamshi, and there is another group that supports Kamtapuri. So this actually is an ongoing process. This happens, and these two groups are wrestling in between for one particular language, for two names actually. This is one language, but they are fighting for two names, and there has been two academies also established for this, and I think third one is also coming up. Right. So these continuous problematics that's happening within, there is the continuous uh, breaks, these continuous divisions that's happening, I think calls for uh, calls for people everywhere to really really think of what is language, right? If why is the name of language so important? Why is the name of community so important? Like where I am living in West Bengal, the name Rajbangshi is there. It's somewhat accepted. But once you go to Assam, there is a huge crisis, a huge problem regarding this name. Somewhere it's Koch Rajvamshi, somewhere Rajvamshi, somewhere coaches. So, and that's again the domain of the politics. Like it's something like once things are out, you have this politics kind of monopolizing these and playing with you at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, what happens is that the people who are being deprived are are left there to actually starve. But I still think that there is language issue, there are several issues. But what the language issue in our community and what the identity politics issue in our community is doing is that it is taking away the main issues. It's actually diverting our issues, are diverting our attention from the real issue. The Rajbangshis still today are one of the most poorest, most vulnerable, most oppressed, both in terms of caste, in terms of language, in terms of your looks, how you look, in terms of migration as well. So I think that's the problem. And since Rajvamshi is also an interstate border and country border, a large part living in in Bangladesh, in Nepal, in India. So what happens is that there is an impact of partition that is indelible, and the trace of that still haunts us. And apart from that, there are these continuing problematics related to language identity, where if you consider, if I call myself as a Dalit, I think today there will be thousands of them who would say that why did she conform to the Dalit identity when we are not scavengers, when we are not manual laborers. That's what their argument is. But I think they fail to understand that Dalit identity is something that you assert through your conscious belief in your identity, which is positive and not negative. Thank you.
Yeah. Uh, Thank you. Like, I mean, I'm learning a lot of things from three of you right now. I mean, I can't even say how grateful I am for all of your contributions. Yeah, Ahana would like to add on to the linguistic politics, and then we go back to Doladi.
Yeah. So exactly what Navarita has said is correct. Like, it's a politics. The linguistic politics is a very big game. Like, see, I come from the western part of Odisha, so we have a separate dialect. Like, we are known, our dialect is called as Sambalpuri. The Sambalpur region. But at the same time, me being a Dalit, so my community name is Gona. Okay, so there is a Gona bhasa, there's a Gona music, there's a Gona everything. But we do not have any script. We are imposed to learn this typical Brahminical Odia language, which is imposed on us. Like we so our script, our literature, our music is missing, just because there are no people. I'm sent to a school where they teach us, where they don't teach my dialect, where they don't teach my language, where they don't teach my mother tongue. So what would I do, or what would a kid like me who has studied in a school like that would do? He will forget, right? So the legacy stops there. My ancestors, they are not educated, so it's always oral history. So somebody like me has to talk to them, has to translate it, or has to learn that, and then put it down on pen and paper and make it scripted and keep it. And somewhere deep down, I feel that the only reason why they have eliminated this language, this literature, this our own music, our own culture, so that we won't be able to come to the mainstream. It's their way to cut it out, cut the slack, and keep it aside. And there's so this language is again called as Koshli. Okay, so now right now Western Orissa, especially this Sambalpur region, is fighting for a Koshal Rajya. We are fighting for our language, we are fighting for our identity, because caste identity is for sure, it's there, but there's something called which connects to me is my language, my culture, and I cannot belong to your Odia culture. Odia culture is this UCA Savarna Brahminical culture, the Pandas, the Tripatis, the Mishras. I cannot be them. It's me always who will be this. So we are fighting for that, and this is a huge politics. As Novanita has stated, it's very correct.
Yeah, Donna, you would like.
Yeah, also that is what, like why today why I decided to talk about this Bhodrolo culture, my referring to this Bhodrolo culture was on that. I mean, they have not only uh, like they discriminated us on the basis of caste, but within the caste system, they have actually taken us all the power or all the strength that we have on our culture or like language. I mean, the worldview of us. I mean, that is something like we are what we are. I mean, like our philosophy. I mean, it has a long history of Nomoshudro. Like when we talk about like our language, like yeah, I mean, they used to like whenever people from Bhodolok society, they will be telling us why you speak in this language. So for them, this language is so Chotolok language. Okay, for them, our food is Chotolok food. So everything whatever we do, they make us feel that we are not worthy of it, as if like for this modern society, for the society itself, like we are not worthy of it. So I felt like they have never questioned themselves. The all the nonsenses, even in the feminist circle also, I've seen like they are doing it. See, today is Lakhi Puja, okay? So after this Durga Puja, so they have never ending pujas. So today in Lakhi Puja, all the Savarna women will be doing this puja, but they have never questioned like if they have any property, if their goddesses have given them any right to have property, but they will not question that. But then they will be talking about Dalit women. Like I've seen like the example they have put on our mothers, our grandmothers, when they used to go to field, okay, to work, or even now when my mother is doing social work along with her family work, like she is never inside home just as a homemaker, but she is a social figure. Matlab, maybe it's very local, maybe it's very small in a way, but she is something like she is identified not with her by her husband name, okay, she is known by her name. So what I'm trying to say, like uh, especially Dalit tribal women, they have their own identity, which they have failed to understand. Even in the feminist group, they have failed to understand, and they will not talk about their limitations. Limitation which is very much rooted to their Hindu culture, to Manusmritic, whatever it is. I don't know, like if you can call it philosophy, but whatever they have, it's like something like it frustrated me. I think it also frustrated us in way. I mean, yeah, I mean, this the importance of language, the importance of culture is very much needed. And now if we're talking about urban space, modern institution, we should also uh, we should also critically understand why and where we are losing all these thing that we have actually, no? Yeah. And yeah, thank you to all actually to have this wonderful platform and
This
sharing
is
everybody's
a
experience.
wonderful contribution. Yes. So I feel in a way this is a wonderful contribution to the entire knowledge that we are kind of producing. It's not just that three or four of us gathered here, just chit chatted, and we are going. I feel the discussion is very organic with the first-hand experiences of the women who have actually faced it, and I feel this has been the moment of history because we actually got a platform to talk about thanks to Tamil Roasters for organizing this particular discussion that we are having right now, which we otherwise would not have had. So, in the sense that we all of us are Dalit women and we never get to know each other unless and until we are given this particular platform. So, it also rings a bell to me that we should actually start forming our own network and our own build our network actually and at least talk to each other. So, in
Yeah,
the
that's
coming
because we are divided by the state, no? So you are from Telangana, she is from
Yeah, that's
Odisha.
okay. We are
So
united by
we
the
have like similar
I
experiences, but then we'll be divided by the state.
I know, true, true. We are divided by the state, united by the experiences of being in Dalit community, and that too with a lot of complexities that are being attached to it, with the bodily integrity, the politics, the linguistic politics of the communities that we are talking about. You're right. We are actually divided by the state, in a way that it's not a physical border also, but yeah, there is some sort of cultural difference amongst us, but still our experiences are similar in the way that we all belong to the most oppressed, group in this nation. So I would like
Yeah,
to
and
thank each and
the interesting thing about the panel is we are representing the East. I mean,
yes,
hardly people talk about East, especially caste and tribes in East is like people, first of all, people don't even know the states, name of the states from the East. They will tell you
yes, yes.
Nagaland is in another country. So, yeah, we are divided by states, but the revolutionary fire of Jyotiba, Savitribai, and Ambedkar is still in our hearts. That is what it connects us.
Yes. And I
Yes.
hope we get to hear these narratives quite often, and everyone should be aware of our own struggle in different parts of the country. And I'd like to thank each and every panel member, Dona Biswas, Nabrita Roy, and Ahana Mansai for their unique surnames and their explanations behind their surnames and their experiences of belonging to, Dalit category. And I would also like to thank Shiva, who is the organizer from Tamil Roasters, for giving us this platform and actually bearing with us till since 1 month to organize this particular discussion here. And it's great, and we would like to end here. Thank you,
Jai Bhim.
Thank you.
Jai Bhim, Jai Savitri, and Jai Bhim
Jai Bhim.
to
Jai
all of us.
Savitri.
And we'll definitely have this discussion. We'll keep having these discussions, no matter what.
We should. Yeah.